The day my slumlord finally met his match, and why I'm still laughing about it. You know that feeling when someone tries to screw you over so badly that it actually becomes the catalyst for the best decision you've made in years? Well, buckle up because I'm about to tell you exactly how my nightmare landlord accidentally did me the biggest favor of my professional life. The setup: a crumbling empire. Picture this: a building that looks like it was abandoned sometime during the Clinton administration, then reluctantly brought back to life with the bare minimum effort possible. We're talking peeling paint that probably contained enough lead to poison a small village, hallways that smelled like a mixture of mold, despair, and whatever the guy in 3B was cooking. Spoiler alert, it wasn't anything good. And neighbors who seemed to believe that 2 a.m. was the perfect time for what I can only describe as industrial percussion performances. But here's the thing: we stayed for years. Why? Because sometimes you make deals with the devil, and our particular devil was offering us office space at rates that made our accountant weep tears of joy. Our lease had expired so long ago that I'm pretty sure the original document had achieved historical significance. But our slumlord, let's call him Larry because he absolutely looks like a Larry, was too lazy to draft a new one. So we just kept paying month to month, like some sort of bizarre real estate purgatory. Larry was the kind of landlord who treated property management like a part-time hobby he wasn't particularly good at. Broken elevator? Oh, get to it. Mysterious brown water coming from the ceiling? Probably nothing serious. Actual rats holding what appeared to be organized meetings in the walls? They'll find their way out eventually. The man had elevated negligence to an art form. The plot twist: greed makes its grand entrance. So there we were, minding our own business, running our little operation out of this architectural disaster zone, when my phone buzzes with a text message that would change everything. It's December 8th. I remember the date because I was eating lunch and nearly choked on my sandwich when I read it. The message was vintage Larry. No punctuation, terrible grammar, and the kind of casual arrogance that only comes from years of getting away with absolute nonsense. He was doubling our rent, doubling it. Not increasing it by a reasonable amount that might account for inflation or improvements. What improvements? But literally asking for twice what we'd been paying. But here's where Larry's masterpiece of stupidity really shines. He wanted us to sign this new lease by January 1st. That gave us exactly 24 days to make a decision that would fundamentally alter our business finances. Oh, and if we decided to leave instead, well, we'd better give him 30 days notice because that's just proper etiquette, don't you know? Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Larry gave us 24 days notice while demanding 30 days notice in return. The mathematical impossibility of this arrangement seemed to be completely lost on our dear slumlord. The light bulb moment, when spite becomes strategy. My business partner and I stared at that text message for exactly 17 seconds before we both started laughing. Not the polite chuckle you give when someone makes a dad joke, but the kind of maniacal laughter that emerges when you realize someone has just handed you the perfect excuse to do what you've been wanting to do for years. "We're out of here," I said. "Obviously. But how much notice are we giving him?" We looked at each other with the kind of shared understanding that only comes from years of putting up with Larry's special brand of property management incompetence. We said 0 in unison. Now, before anyone starts typing angry comments about proper business etiquette, let me remind you of a few key facts. We had no lease. Larry had given us less notice than he was demanding from us, and most importantly, this was a man who had spent years treating basic maintenance requests like suggestions and tenant complaints like amusing anecdotes. The gloves were officially off. The Great Escape, Operation New Beginning. What followed was 3 weeks of the most satisfying detective work of my professional life. We scoured the neighborhood with the intensity of FBI agents tracking down a fugitive, except we were hunting for the perfect office space. And let me tell you, it wasn't hard to find something better than Larry's House of Horrors. Just around the corner, literally a 2-minute walk, we found it. A beautiful, well-maintained office space with functioning elevators, mysterious brown stain-free ceilings, and neighbors who apparently believed in the radical concept of indoor voices. The rent was competitive, the landlord was professional, and the building didn't look like it was being held together by spite and outdated building code violations. We signed the lease faster than Larry could have said double the rent. The art of strategic packing. Moving day was where things got really interesting. See, over the years, the previous tenants of our old office had left behind various decorative items. Nothing valuable, just small things that made the space slightly less depressing. A plant here, a picture frame there, some office supplies that had been abandoned in drawers. Larry, being Larry, had never bothered to inventory these items or even ask about them. In fact, I'm pretty sure Larry couldn't have told you what color our office walls were if his life depended on it. The man's attention to detail was so lacking that I once saw him try to unlock his own building with what was very clearly a car key. So when we packed up our stuff, we took those abandoned items with us. Were they technically ours? Probably not. Did Larry have any way of knowing they ever existed? Absolutely not. Would he ever notice they were gone? I'd bet my new lease on it. We didn't trash the place, we're not monsters, but we also didn't spend our final hours there scrubbing floors and polishing windows for a landlord who had never shown us an ounce of consideration. We packed our things, took a final look around at the place that had been our professional home for so many years, and walked out the door without a backward glance. The grand finale. A text message for the ages. January 1st rolled around like the final scene of a particularly satisfying revenge movie. We were already settled into our new office, coffee brewing in a kitchen that didn't double as a science experiment, enjoying the novelty of functional heating and neighbors who apparently weren't auditioning for a reality show called America's Loudest Tenants. That's when I sent the text. Hey Larry, just wanted to let you know we vacated the building as of today. Thanks for everything. Short, sweet, and absolutely devastating in its simplicity. His response came about 6 hours later, a series of increasingly frantic messages asking about the keys, about our forwarding address, about whether we'd found someone to take over the lease. What lease, Larry? And about damage deposits that had never been collected in the first place. But here's my favorite part of this whole saga. We never gave him the keys back, not because we were planning some elaborate scheme to sneak back in, but because Larry never asked for them. Not once during our entire tenancy had this man ever demonstrated the basic property management skill of keeping track of who had keys to his building. For all I know, those keys are still sitting in my desk drawer, serving as the perfect reminder of what happens when greed overrides common sense. The aftermath. Sweet, sweet vindication. 6 months later, I drove by the old building just out of curiosity. There was a for rent sign in the window of our old office. The asking price? Exactly what we had been paying before Larry's brilliant doubling scheme. Apparently, the commercial real estate market had delivered its own verdict on Larry's business acumen. Meanwhile, our new office has been everything we hoped for and more. Professional landlord, reasonable rent increases, functioning infrastructure, and the kind of basic respect that should be standard in any business relationship, but felt revolutionary after years of dealing with Larry. The moral of the story. Sometimes when someone tries to take advantage of you, they accidentally hand you exactly the motivation you need to make a change you should have made years ago. Larry's greed wasn't just his downfall, it was our liberation. To anyone out there dealing with their own Larry, there are better options available. You don't have to accept substandard treatment just because it's familiar. Sometimes the scariest decision, walking away, turns out to be the best decision you never knew you wanted to make. And to Larry, wherever you are, still probably trying to figure out how to work the building's thermostat, thanks for the motivation. I couldn't have asked for a better reason to finally leave your crumbling empire behind. The keys, by the way, are still in my desk drawer. I keep them as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, preferably in a building that doesn't actively threaten your health and safety on a daily basis. Update. A friend who still works in the neighborhood tells me Larry's building now has a new tenant. Apparently they negotiated him down to below what we were originally paying. Karma, as it turns out, has a delicious sense of irony. Top comments. Holy shit, I'm a property manager and Larry gives all of us a bad name. The fact that he demanded 30 days notice while only giving you 24 is not just hypocritical. In most states, that's literally illegal. You can't just double someone's rent with that little notice, lease or no lease. Dude probably violated like 6 different tenant protection laws. You should have reported him to the housing authority on your way out, lol. Author. Trust me, the thought crossed our minds, but honestly, we were just so relieved to be out of there that we didn't want to spend another second of our lives dealing with Larry in any capacity. Sometimes the best revenge is just moving on and letting them dig their own grave. Comment. Bro, I felt this in my soul. Had a similar situation with my restaurant space in Chicago. Landlord tried to jack up rent 80% with 3 weeks' notice during COVID. Told him to pound sand and found a better location within a month. Old place is still empty 2 years later. These slumlords really think they're irreplaceable when they're actually doing you a favor by being so unreasonable. Answer. Wait, was this in Wicker Park? Because I swear I know exactly which building you're talking about if it is. Red brick, smells like old socks and broken dreams? Another answer. Haha, not gonna dox myself, but let's just say there are apparently multiple buildings in Chicago that fit that description. Slumlords are like a plague. Comment. NAL, but work in commercial real estate law. The no lease but month-to-month situation is actually more common than people think, and it usually works in the tenant's favor. Without a written lease, most jurisdictions default to tenant-friendly implied lease terms. Larry probably had no legal right to demand 30 days notice from you while giving less himself. You played this perfectly. Also, those abandoned decorative items, if they were there when you moved in and the landlord never claimed them, they're legally considered abandoned property in most places. You're probably fine. Author. Thanks for the legal perspective. We actually looked into this at the time, better safe than sorry, and our lawyer basically said what you said. Larry created his own legal nightmare by being so lazy about documentation. Honestly, the guy was his own worst enemy. Comment. The brown water from the ceiling thing made me physically cringe. As someone who works building maintenance, that's either a massive plumbing leak or a roof leak that's been going on for months. Either way, that's not probably nothing serious. That's call someone immediately before the ceiling collapses and kill someone serious. You dodged a bullet getting out of there. Buildings like that are accidents waiting to happen. Author. Oh man, you should have seen the repairs Larry would do. I once watched him fix a leaky pipe by literally just wrapping it in duct tape and calling it a day. The brown ceiling stain actually grew bigger over time. Looking back, I'm amazed the building didn't just collapse from neglect. Comment. Mate, this is absolutely brilliant. The pettiness level is chef's kiss. Keeping the keys because he never asked for them back is my favorite detail. I bet Larry's still scratching his head wondering how he managed to lose tenants who were paying without complaint for years. Similar thing happened to a mate of mine in Manchester. Landlord got greedy, mate found a better place, and the greedy landlord's property sat empty for 8 months. Some people really don't know when they've got a good thing going. Comment. This is why I tell everyone never get emotionally attached to a rental property. The moment a landlord shows their true colors, start looking for alternatives immediately. You probably could have moved years earlier and saved yourself so much headache. That said, I love how this turned out for you. Sometimes we need that final push to make the changes we should have made ages ago. How's the new place working out business-wise? Author. New place has been amazing. Our clients actually comment on how much nicer our office looks now, and we've been able to attract better talent because people don't have to navigate through what looked like a post-apocalyptic hellscape to get to work. Productivity's up, morale is better, and we're paying basically the same amount for 10x the quality. Should have made the move years ago. Comment. The keys, by the way, are still in my desk drawer. This is the most beautiful ending to a landlord revenge story I've ever read. The complete incompetence of never asking for keys back is just magnificent. Please tell me you've at least once considered mailing them back to him with no return address, just to mess with his head. Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.